Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. It's the first week of May, and I'm so excited about my guest. I don't know if I have any comedy dates yet because everything got bumped back, because y'all know I tape these ahead of time, so we're still in, I think I'm in March. I could be in March or April. So comedy dates, whatever, go to my website, sign up for my email list. That's how you would get those dates. And also still doing tarot readings, and I believe by this time my tarot class is out. But let's get right to tonight's or today's or wherever the heck you listen to this guest. One of my favorite, I have to say, I've been to a lot of paranormal conventions. Not only does he do the best presentation, he does my favorite. You guys know him from Fact or Faked. You also probably have seen him on Ghosts of Morgan City on the Travel Channel, a whole bunch of stuff. He's doing some stuff now he can't tell us about right away, but I know it's going to be great. Ben Hansen, thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you. And what a compliment.
Oh no!
I'll give you some money later about that. But your favorite presenter at conferences. Wow.
Oh my God! You and Schrader, my two favorites. I am telling you. And I actually, because I've known you for a long time. I knew you through comedy, through Ryan Hamilton, before all this paranormal.
That's right.
Even happened.
I think he was in LA. He was in LA, and he invited me to come up to see a show. And I think there was like a bunch of comics, and we met backstage. And I think that's where because didn't he introduce us? And he's like, "Hey, here's my friend, and she's into ghost stuff." I was like, "Really?" And then so we chatted there, and then before you know it, we were like at paranormal conferences.
Yeah, and actually, I think the show I think was Comics Unleashed or Comedy.com or something like that. But that was so funny. But I had the best time reading your bio. Fascinating. And of course, the thing I find the most fascinating is that you're a falconeer.
Absolutely. That was a time in my life when I had more time. I got a federal and a state license to capture a falcon and participate in the old English, the sport of kings. I caught a falcon and I trained it, and I was like 14 years old, and everyone thought it was really weird, but I had the license to do it, and then I got ready to like go outside to, finally fly him around, because you're supposed to like catch, food with it. Well, there wasn't like I didn't feel comfortable to fly him outside, so I had to go to the pet store and buy him little mice. Oh. Like every day, pretty much, and feed him a mouse in the living room, and my mom hated it.
Oh, that's so funny. Well,
guts everywhere.
That's the downside of falconeering, the guts. We had in the tarot, there's a 9 of Pentacles cards, and she is the falconeer, and it shows that she's very high society because only rich people could be falconeers. Rich people and Ben Hansen.
That's right.
Yes. So, and I'm going to remember the name of the hotel that I always talk about in Utah before we get to it. But first of all, so your background is fascinating in that it's everything from criminology to an EMT to search and rescue. You have done all these things, and you were an investigator for the FBI.
Yeah. After not directly out of college, I investigated some pretty sad things, child sex crimes, for several years, and then I went to work for the FBI for a bit. So. It was not like the movies, I'll say. And I actually, X-Files inspired me in large part to want to go there.
Oh, really?
And it's not like I thought I would actually find the X-Files, but, it was really, really good training, mostly good people. It just wasn't, what I expected. And, then I later found myself, I fell into TV actually. Never thought that I'd do TV stuff. And then It's like every year I have something new I want to pursue.
Yeah, but even reading your bio and right on the front it says "Stay curious," which is why I think comics and paranormal people tend to. There's a lot of comics in the paranormal because it's about an endless curiosity that is never going to probably be satisfied.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I think and I'm not a comedian, but I appreciate the art of it. And it's looking at things in a different way, and that's taking what people may have seen 1,000 times and like, wait a second, this is very interesting. If you ask yourself, why is this? And I think ghost hunting and paranormal, UFOs, all that stuff, you're asking like the big questions of the universe, and that's all about curiosity.
Yeah, and Fact or Faked was the perfect show for you.
Yeah. So that, I loved it because I got in on the ground level and was able to work with the producers in coming up with the concept. And, at the time, the only shows that were on, you had Ghost Hunters and you basically had Ghost Adventures and a couple others. But they were all just, nothing wrong with that, but they were just kind of waiting for things to happen. It was all ghosts. And so when we started in with it, I said, I think there's a lot of other phenomena that's really interesting that you're missing out on. Plus, what about testing things, testing the evidence, not just waiting for it to happen. And that's kind of how the show was born. And we did everything from mermaids to, looking for levitating people above their beds to, anything you can imagine. And it was a lot of fun.
See, now, if I did that show, it would be called Fact or Fact because I believe everything. I am in everything. So what was the most interesting thing that happened on that show that you were like, well, that wasn't the outcome I thought we were going to get?
Well, it was a lot of firsts for me because I had done quite a bit of ghost hunting. But, when you're doing it day in and day out in really hot spot locations, you start seeing things. So I had my first experience with object manipulation. I had watched some footprints form in a pile of leaves right in front of me in a cemetery in Indiana. And then we had objects. We had an ashtray explode that we were investigating the case, but I wasn't at this one. My other team was, and we caught on camera a wine glass fly across a bar from the rack onto the ground. And so you think about those first, and people who haven't done this are like, oh my gosh, my life would be changed. But you know what? Since that time, I've had so many more intense experiences. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's commonplace, but when you watch apparitions walk through a wall to all that stuff, in our show, I would say I had favorites for each category. We captured a really great UFO video in Florida where this orb on camera comes up out of a grove of trees, stops for just a quick second, and zooms off in another direction. And it wasn't, it's not like a dust or anything like that because you see the reflection of it over the water. It's actually way out there. And then we had different things with, I guess the one that I hear the most from people is somebody captured these little creatures that have been come to be known. We call them night crawlers is what they were, night crawlers. And they look like a pair of pants and with nobody in them. Right. And they're walking across this guy's lawn. And it's just that kind of degree of funky weird that everyone remembered this episode and we never figured it out. Didn't know what it was.
Now, did you guys, did he say this happens or did he say, I just have a lot of activity and all of a sudden a little pair of pants went across the thing? I find pants on the freeway not as exciting, but
I don't know that he supposed anything had happened before that point when he checked his DVR, because something had been, if I remember correctly, setting off his motion detector or something, And when he reviewed the video, you see these pants walking, and but he doesn't fit the profile for a hoaxer. He didn't want to report it. It's really hard to actually take a video and put it on a DVR. If anyone's done that before, most of it's Chinese proprietary software that it's a weird coding technical thing that, like, it's not easy to fake a video onto a DVR. So there's a bunch of things that made us believe that actually happened in camera. So what is it? And we tried, we hired a little girl and had her dress up in like a white jumpsuit and had her waddle across the lawn, and took some puppets and all sorts of things, and never could really come close to it.
See, that's funny. I would think, but this would just be me because, I'm in the whole other world. I would think that was some sort of elemental earth spirit or even a leprechaun or something. I don't know how to prove that. Plus, you have to say, too, if someone is going to put together a hoax, they're not going to put together a little pair of pants. Like,
it's very creative. If it were a hoax, it's one of those things that you just, like ghosts check, UFOs check, got it. You've heard it all. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute. Yeah, a pair of pants. So
they don't sell the app that fakes those. What was your favorite crypto moment?
Let me think here. I've had stuff that happened, not on the show. We did investigate some Bigfoot cases. We did one. I loved it because of where we went. So we have this video, and it was depicts what people thought was a large black lion, and it's in England near Plymouth, which is right in the National Park of Dartmoor. So people are saying, what's the beast of Dartmoor, right? So when we went out there, the video it's kind of like blurry and short. And I'm like, okay, well, this could be CGI. But we couldn't really get much further with the video. So we tested things out. We actually went to a zoo and got a lion and had the
wow, that's a good budget that you can catch lions.
Well, they wouldn't let us rent the lion, just for the day. Like we couldn't take him out, so he had to stay there in the green screen. We made a green screen room for him, but we couldn't take him out into the field like I wanted to. So had him run. He looked pretty similar, but what is a black lion, first of all, doing out there in the fields and in England? And so then we tried a miniature pony, I believe, is another one that we tried.
Wow.
And finally we come down to, okay, well, it's either CGI or this is a real lion of some sort that is, so it could be sort of a jaguar, could be something like that, but what is it doing here? So we went out and we went on this, night investigation. And as we were going around though during the daytime, and it's pouring rain, we had a tracker with us. We found some sheep that had just been torn apart. I mean,
wow.
Like fur devoured everywhere, stripped clean. And I was like, hold on. I said, I am not an expert of England, but what kind of predators do you have here? And he said nothing that would take an animal down like this. That we've got foxes, and I think they had some tiny sort of, maybe, I don't even know if I'm saying this, if it's true, like bobcats, I thought maybe they had, but nothing that would take down a sheep like this, and so suddenly you're like, well, it gets into that cryptid world where I feel Bigfoot belongs, where the more and more I learn about stuff in the cryptid world, I can't say for certain that these all are like living, breathing, tangible, always there types of animals. And as weird as that sounds, I'm far more open into, like discussing interdimensional things.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, where would they be? Why don't we see them? Why don't we find a dead one? Why don't, Bigfoot carcasses, why don't we find those as roadkill?
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Also, why is Bigfoot never sitting? He's always walking. Like his to-do list must be huge. But I believe last week I had on Derek Condit, who was I was talking to him about the missing 411 cases, where and my favorite one of those, which is I think it's on Prime or Netflix, I'm not sure, but it's Missing 411, The Hunters, which is the hunters that know the woods. When those guys go missing, there's no hope for the rest of us because they know that place. They have guns and everything. And he was saying again, like how there's that, one dimension can go in front of another and all of a sudden it's gone. And I'm with you on this interdimensional stuff. And I think as the veil gets thinner, we're seeing more and more and more of it. And it just doesn't make any sense, which actually gives a perfect segue to two things, because I want to get to UFOs with you in the next segment, and then the Skinwalker Ranch, which, by the way, have you been there?
I have been close to it, and we can talk about that a little bit more now that the owner has come forward, and I can share with you my connection there.
Okay, and before we take this first break, the hotel in Ogden that is so haunted is called the Ben Lomond.
I have heard of this.
It's a very interesting, it's actually one of these things where the actual story that's you hear all over, a woman died of a broken heart because her son went to war, blah, 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 isn't really close. And there was a woman, there's a great, actually Utah, she's in Utah and she writes a blog called the Dead History, and she goes into more of it, and so people will understand this because they know me. You will laugh your head off. But I was in Ogden working at Wise Guys, one of my favorite clubs, and I'm with Courage, my dog, and I'm on the phone with my animal communicator friend, and she says, Courage just described this building to me, and she describes the building exactly, and she goes, he says to never go in there. I know. And so I actually ended up, the second time I was there, I went in, and it's very interesting because the first thing I went in, and the lady said, it felt very heavy, but it didn't. I was like, I'm not there yet. I'm not, that bad yet. And so the lady, who was very talky, told me how they just had all the mirrors painted over, all the, beams had mirrors, and the mirrors were facing each other. And she said, it's not as bright in here since they painted over the mirrors, which I know, right? I say mirror to mirror, not good.
Yeah. Well, first of all, why? Was this after you were warned not to go in there?
Yeah, it was actually a year after, because when I was warned there, I didn't go, and then the next year I was like, I'm going in. But she and the other thing, the mirror thing was one. What is your feeling? The mirrors faced each other. That was the thing, and I thought, ugh. Yeah. So, what is your feeling on the mirrors, or why I went in there when I was?
Well, I've heard a lot of the. I think that comes from. I can never pronounce it right. The macabre, right? Mm-hmm. In the Victorian era, where they had all of these different ideas of what happens to the spirit when it dies, and that's where the scrying, came about with a candle and looking into mirrors, because the idea that you're looking into, again, a dimension of eternity. So I think what you're saying is, like, when you put two mirrors facing each other, you're looking through eternity. Yeah. It goes on and on and on.
Well, right? Dave Schrader talked about that, how they've seen something jump from one mirror to the other. And I know in feng shui, there's like no mirror to mirror.
Wow.
Yeah, and and then after that, I went up to the second floor where there was nothing redone, and it was so heavy. And but the thing was, they kept talking about the 11th floor, which is now a restaurant, and the lady and the elevators, which of course move on their own. And the lady at the front desk says to me, I think the third time I was there, I tried to go to the 11th floor, and the elevator took me to the 9th, and it didn't go to the 11th floor for me for some reason, right? But she goes, well, aren't you going to go up and see the 11th floor? And I turn around and look, and the elevator doors open. Nobody in them, just like, come on up. And so I didn't go. But someone talked to me after a show and said that they were drinking there, and a security guard said, you can come up and see, because the 11th floor had been blocked off. Nobody in there for the longest time. And it almost was like that Stephen King movie where one of the doors was like nailed shut, or you weren't supposed to use that room. But here's the weird connection. This was bought, and after someone bought it, I went back to look on the internet, and almost everything was wiped. For some reason, I could find very little on it except this one blog, The Dead History, which has the best review and stuff that went on. But isn't Bigelow the guy that actually also bought the Skinwalker Ranch?
Bigelow, yeah. Did Bigelow buy it?
I think it's a different Bigelow, but that's a weird coincidence, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that would be. I mean, he buys properties and things like that supposedly are haunted. But you're saying now that, so there's different owners, and are they trying to get away from that whole stigma, and they don't want it known for that, I'm guessing?
Yeah, the new owners seem to not want that out there.
Bummer. Because I was saying we should go do an event there.
Oh, my God. Well, you know what? I know that there's still some tapes online, and we can take a look, but the stories are everything. They always have the Miss Teen America or something, some sort of contestant there, and the girls hate it because they'll walk in and the doors will be opening and closing. And it's so we'll look into. I'll go with you. You seem to have some magical protection, so I'll go with you on that. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back talking aliens with Ben Hansen. Hey everybody, it's me doing an ad for me. That's right, I keep forgetting to say this at the end, so I had to take out an ad on my own podcast. First of all, thanks for listening, and I love all your feedback. If you have a comment or a story or just want to say hi, email me at karenrontowski@gmail.com. Also, go to karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com, and you can get my tarot class. That's right, it took me 2 years to put it together. It's 8 classes, about an hour each. You will be reading tarot by the end. While you're there, sign up for my email list. Everyone should do this. I only send out an email about every 2 to 3 months, and it's filled with typos and misspellings, so you know I haven't been kidnapped, and that's the best way to keep up on comedy dates and whatever is new. While you're there, you can book a 30 or 60-minute tarot reading, or you can get a gift certificate for somebody else. I got a little bit of merch left. If you want a Paranormal Karen Shungite sticker for your phone to make it safer, you can email me about that, or I now sell Paranormal Karen reusable straws. You take them with you wherever you go. Maybe you're doing cocaine with someone that doesn't look like they're clean. Boom, you got your own straw. karenrontowski.com. Okay, so now we cleared that up about the Ben Lomond. And the next time you're home, take a look or read that in the Dead History. I think you'll find it really interesting.
Yeah. I do remember that name, but I'm wondering if there's any local paranormal group that has an inn, that I probably would have heard of them doing investigations if they were allowing it.
Yeah.
But, they should embrace it.
Yeah,
there's... can make lots of money that way.
I know they should. And there's a couple, like I said, there's a couple of videotapes online, and I believe the 11th floor is now a restaurant. but it has not been on any TV shows. It's sort of a virgin territory. Look it up on YouTube because there was just a couple of groups that went in. So if I'm ever out in Ogden, I'll send you a text message anyway. Maybe we can go see what's going on.
Well, you shouldn't disobey your dog, maybe.
I know. Well, you know what? After the second time I went, he was like, tell her to wipe herself clean. Tell her to do a Reiki cleanse. Because Courage is actually a really great ghost hunter. But he's getting older, so I don't like to give him the heart attack. I know. So now UFOs, everybody always wants to hear UFOs and alien stuff. And so I'm going to go right to sort of the heart of the woo-woo. Do you buy into the idea that we might be alien DNA?
I don't know. It requires a lot of proof. I mean, I've heard. I'm well versed in the theories. It's.
But you're not convinced yet.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not convinced at all. I think we are alien. If you think about it, how do we get here to this world? Even, Adam and Eve, alien sort of thing. What I don't really know that I buy into is that a third race or another race came and inserted their DNA to evolve us. That's where I'm like that requires a lot of proof.
Right, that we may never have.
But I do believe that it's possible we're being watched over and monitored by some other race that is like us or may have that's got a relation to us that's coming back in these times and has something to do with, being aware of our progress or, possible destruction or whatever, that they're very interested in what we're doing.
So do you think they're good, bad? There's a bunch of them. We're in the middle of it.
It could be all the above.
Yeah. Have you ever
I think we kind of make the mistake of assuming that it's just one group. I think we could be being visited by multiple that have different motives.
Well, now because you had something on your Twitter that they found 139 new planets or something, or
galaxies? How creepy is that? Like, we don't even know where they came from.
I know. There's so much. Remember, you might be too young, but I remember when there was only one galaxy.
Yep. And that Pluto was a planet, and then it got uninvited, and then it was re-added, and then they're not sure what it is now. And
wow. So what have you had? Obviously, you've seen UFOs. What is your idea have you ever talked to abductees, or what is your favorite part of the UFO sort of genre that's the most fascinating?
Well, I'm definitely in the camp of that people have had very close encounters. I'm very. Did you meet Travis Walton? Did we ever do an event with him?
We did. You know what? Travis Walton I would do anything to get him on this podcast. He was fascinating. And I saw him speak at Gettysburg. And, I don't mean this in a bad way, but he's not a show business guy. He's a guy
no, he's not at all.
He's telling his story. And the thing that took me the most was he's a big, strong guy. And him at 18 or 20 or however young he was, not able to fight off little aliens was like, holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I'm sure he'd probably do it if you invite him.
I will invite him. Yeah, because you went up with him. He did an event on the night of the 15-year reunion or something?
Yeah. It was the 35th. See, 1975, so it was the 40th, I think. 40th anniversary. So we did, I've been up there multiple times up to his site, and we did 2 conferences, 1 year before and then the next year of the anniversary.
Now, do you find anything interesting in that space?
You mean I believe his is one of the most well-documented cases. that somebody has been aboard a craft, interacted, and the abduction thing, even that's, the word abduction, he doesn't like to use it, and it wasn't like the movie. The book is very different and what actually happened. And so his was kind of the turning point for me to say, well, if it happened to him, then it's very probable that other people have had similar experiences. So that's kind of where I am on the whole continuum,
And for people that don't know, the movie years ago was called A Fire in the Sky, and that's also the book, right?
Yeah. So the book is where he actually, I think he wrote it. Did it come? No, it was actually the same time as the movie came out. So he writes the book to fill in the gaps for people, because he felt like he accepted that the movie needed some drama, needed some fiction, to be able to give people the feeling of what it was really like in that experience. But he also feels that so many things were misrepresented that he put it all in the book, and it's far more believable, because a lot of people don't realize, aside from the Greys, he had interaction with blonde-haired, blue-eyed, for all intents and purposes, humans. And there were 3 of those that he interacted with in the short, about 2-hour time span that he remembers.
And he is the part from the movie true, which the reason it was well documented is he was up logging. They were chopping down trees, and he got hit. Everyone saw him, correct, in the truck. He got out of the truck to see what the light was. He got picked up and thrown. He had some incredible facts about later when that weren't in either of them, either the book that he just went back with. And then did those guys got accused? The law got involved because they thought they did something to him, right? Or was that the movie?
Yeah. So you got 7 people. I mean, including Travis, 7 people. And what makes it one of the most well-documented cases is because they all saw this circular, saucer-shaped craft about 15 feet above the ground, hovering. And when they got closer to it, realized what it was, they were all astonished. And he jumps out of the truck and, just out of curiosity, basically runs up to the thing. So at this point, they're screaming at him to get back in. The thing starts rumbling and making a low, sound like it was powering up of some sort. And that's where they witnessed this beam of light. So unlike the movie, which kind of shows him being purposely, tractor beamed up, no, it was more like a static discharge. And he thinks it may have been that he just got too close to the thing, and it hits him in his chest and his head. So when he flew backwards, they thought he was dead. So they did take off. They left him there. They think maybe it was no more than 5 or 10 minutes before they said, what if he's still alive? We have to go back. So when they went back for him, he was gone, just completely gone, no trace of him. So that's where they were really frightened. Didn't know that even at first telling the police was a good idea, because they thought they're going to think we killed him. They're not going to believe us.
Right.
But they did tell the police right away. And then there was a 5-day search for him. Actually, they searched for about 3 days, and then they gave up. And then they felt that there was foul play. So what makes the story really cool is that you then had the whole team take polygraph tests, and if people really believe there's any validity to it, the polygraph, they passed it. All of them passed, except for one guy who was inconclusive, and he basically ended the test because he thought it was ridiculous.
They were pretty in that time. They were just probably made fun of, over the top.
Well, yeah, and frustrated. When you see this happen, and it's like, people aren't going to believe the truth. What do? You can't change the facts. Your friend's gone, right? So that's what I think makes this case so unusual, because you have witnesses. The only thing that would make it better is if you had a video camera with him, but it's 1975.
Yeah.
So, excellent case that, like I said, it puts me in that camp of, all right, I believe this guy, and I believe what he said happened is the way he remembers it, and so did the other crew. So if that's true, how many other people could possibly have been aboard craft, have seen extraterrestrials like this? You can't just easily discount other people's stories.
Right. So you've seen UFOs. I actually did a show on synchronicities, and I believe you're one of those people. I always feel like in the Matrix, if you get very interested in the paranormal, it's almost like the paranormal also starts to see you. So, you've probably seen a lot of UFO activity.
I've had three sightings that were very significant, and my very first was in the Caribbean. It's kind of hard to describe to someone your UFO sightings because we hear so many of them now. It's almost like listening to somebody, talk about their dream that they had. You're like, oh, that's very nice. It's like you saw a light in the sky and it was doing this thing, and like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. Like the light I saw in the sky was at the height of a satellite and is doing S turns.
Right.
And if you think about the implications of what kind of craft and G-forces involved, but that wasn't even my most spectacular one. The coolest one I had was here in California, in Huntington Beach. And I was with my wife, who we weren't married yet at the time. And I was jogging on a high school track at night, and I stopped to stretch in the middle of the grass, and I saw one of those black triangles that was completely silent, and it went over our heads. And, I thought I was drinking the Kool-Aid because you could look like you could see through the middle part, and three white lights on the corners. It was absolutely amazing.
So this is one of those that's like big as a football field, right? These ones are huge, the triangular ones.
Some of them. I mean, the Phoenix lights could possibly, according to some witnesses, have been over a mile wide. But this was the baby version. This was like probably 30. I estimated based on the cloud heights and everything that I saw it go through, probably only about 30 feet from point to point.
How high up was it above you?
1,000 feet. And I know that precisely because I'm a pilot as well, and I looked up the aviation weather for Huntington Beach right over us, and the marine layer was 1,000 feet. And I actually saw the clouds kind of wisp over the leading edge of this thing as it cruised along. So it was right at 1,000 feet and completely silent.
You are the guy to have a UFO. How high was it? 1,000 feet? Because I'm a pilot and I'm a weatherman, and I love that. So 1,000 feet is not that, like, that's like a whole bunch of me's on my head. So I'm 5'9", so that's like a whole bunch of me. That's not that far off. Now, when you see that, is it like shocking, or do you freeze, or is it a little bit frightening? Because that's not that high up.
Well, if you think about when you go ghost hunting or something, I don't know how it is for you, but a lot of times it's when I'm not in that frame of mind. I'm not expecting it. When I'm ghost hunting, I'm looking for ghosts, but a lot of stuff happens when you're setting up, or you're just chatting with somebody, and you're not like calling it, waiting for it. It just happens suddenly. Like you pinch yourself for a second because like, am I seeing this? And luckily my wife, as she was jogging still, I had stopped. She came around the corner of the track, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I said, I think I just saw it. She goes, a UFO. I said, you saw it too. So I was really happy I had a witness. And the eerie thing about it, though, was like so many people describe, when you see a craft in the sky, you expect noise. Even with an annoying drone that's over, you hear the buzzing, you hear that. This thing was cruising probably 500 to 700 miles an hour as I, think about as I timed it afterwards. 500 to 700 miles an hour with a propulsion that is silent. that's the crazy thing. And then there's some cloaking technology involved where I don't think we were actually meant to see the balls of light on the side. They weren't marker lights. It was more like a very dim, sort of a glow. I think it's actually part of something that they're not able to completely cover up because it's part of the propulsion. That's my belief. And there it was, and I'm like, well, okay, is it our military? Why would you fly this over a populated area when you have all that ocean?
Right.
Catalina and the areas where they do flight testing, you could have done it out there, but it wanted to be seen. It's so weird. So weird.
So you think it wanted to be seen? I always think they just think everyone has their head in their cell phone, so they're not going to look.
Well, or they become so brazen with it that they're just like, who cares anymore, because who's going to believe you? Like, we've been doing this forever. People see things and it gets put into a forum or a report online. If the person reports it, doesn't change a thing. That's kind of what, look they paraded March, was it 17th or 21st? I forget the exact date, 1997, Phoenix Lights, right? They paraded for at least a good half an hour, possibly all the way from Vegas down through, downtown Phoenix and over South Mountain. And just kind of like, yeah, so what? It's as slow as 10 miles an hour. And people are seeing these humongous craft, and if they didn't want that to be seen,
right?
That's what I don't get. It says, just give it up, guys. Come down, land on the White House lawn. Let's have our chat. Let's have it over with. I'm kind of. It almost makes me mad to the point where I'm like, they're just toying with us, whoever they are.
There's a couple of theories, and actually our friend Ashley said for me to ask you about the UFO president connection, or she said you have a great spin on that. But also, I heard one theory. Do you think they sort of see us and we're kind of dropping bombs and we're fighting and we're not really getting along, and they might think like, don't land yet. Maybe we'll wait till they get it together, stop this little family squabble they're having. Because I know I had on a guy a while ago, and he was saying a lot of them do crash, and we get more knocked out of the air than we think. So if we're knocking them out of the air, maybe they're not so ready to come down.
Yes, I agree with all of that could be true. Because I've been doing some research lately and some projects I can't talk about yet. But one of the things that a popular theory is that if you look at the Roswell crash, that was at the very, very beginnings of radar when it was brand new. We're talking like it was only months old, where, well, I shouldn't say, no, it was years old actually, because we had it in 42. So
I was going to correct you on that, Ben.
I knew you would. It was in its infancy, but we had these new advances in radar where there's a theory that this is the first time the visitors, had encountered our advancements in radar, and it was actually jamming something with the flight controls or their abilities that they didn't expect. And, otherwise, if you're coming thousands of light years or from another dimension, you'd think you'd probably have some pretty cool stuff that's not going to break down. It's like under warranty somehow. And, but if you're encountered with, whoa, hey, we didn't expect the primitives to come up with this new technology. And so we had from 1947 to at least, let's say the early 50s, it's been rumored that the places where they were recovering these craft, that we had multiple crashes that were recovered, and that a lot of it might be attributed to our radar technology. So that's one theory.
I kind of like that theory. Go ahead.
Yeah, because it might explain, how we're coming up with these, roadside accidents and stuff that we're collecting the craft. And then, like you said, the other thing is like, well, maybe maybe they are kind of monitoring and they're waiting for the perfect moment. When should we come down and make ourselves? Oh no, they're fighting again. And I don't know if they are monitoring us, if they are kind of keeping us in check. It seems like they've always had an interest in our military advancements. Mm-hmm. Because look at 1947 and look what was happening. Roswell was had the only nuclear. It wasn't the Air Force at the time, but the Army Air Force, the only squadron that was a nuclear squadron, because we were about to drop the nuclear bombs. And you look throughout history when they show up, like New Mexico, White Sands, all of these major testing facilities, possibly because of what we were just becoming capable of doing, right? So that's a very kind of real possibility. But I don't know. Like I said, I just get frustrated. I'm like,
we can talk about it all day. Just come down and talk to Ben.
Exactly. Like, look, but here, okay. So we are right now. We're talking about this during the midst of the coronavirus, right? So. Mm-hmm. So when this airs in May, maybe we would already have disclosure. I don't know, but
I doubt that fast, or if anyone would notice, right?
But what really is was a surprise to me was this: back in 1952, they had what they called the Brookings Institute was hired as part of what the Robertson panel, sponsored by the CIA. Okay, so. What they wanted to know was, if we did have information that we've been visited, what is the best course of action? Should we tell the public? And the result of this study was definitely not. They based this in large part of what the reaction was with the radio show War of the Worlds.
Right.
The Orson Welles and the panic that ensued. But then, they're like, okay, well, it's not going to be the end of religion and society's institutes. And decades have passed now. The world has grown up. We've been exposed to so many, traumatic things we've come through. Maybe we're grown up enough to handle this. Then hits the coronavirus. Okay, not diminishing the seriousness of the small percentage of deaths that have happened. That is tragic, but we all know that thousands and tens of thousands of more people die of the flu, the common flu each year, and it's the fear of fear that has fueled this to the point where people are just about ready to kill each other for toilet paper. Right?
That's true. The toilet paper analogy is perfect.
You can't find it anywhere because nobody said, hey, China ran out of toilet paper, guys, because the power went down, electricity. There's no logical connection to toilet paper, yet people panic so much. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, you know what? The skeptics are right.
Yeah, and we
shouldn't tell people about aliens because it's going to be so much worse.
I know. Yet even worse than that, the Q&A would be terrible when they came down. If they had a town hall, can you imagine the questions people would be asking them that had nothing to do with nothing? It's funny because first of all, whenever I was told I have DNA from Orion, that the Orions are my people. So whenever I hear of a crash, I think those are my people. We drive the same. We're the same drivers. I once read a book by a minister. His last name was Storm, and he had a negative near-death experience. And it's a really great book. I have to see if I can find this guy. But he was saying, it was kind of how he had a negative thing, and he sort of opened up, and he he got to meet God or have a conversation. And this was a long time ago. And this was in the 80s when we were worried about nuclear war. And it's interesting because he asked God, he got to ask God some questions, which is very rare on a near death. But one of the questions he said was, we're worried about nuclear war. And he said, God answered, that will never happen. You will never do that to my planet. I know. And it was very interesting because maybe that's when I don't know who is of God or isn't, but maybe that's another thing they're watching, is to just make sure we don't blow this planet up.
Yeah, and I'm open to that.
Blowing up the planet?
Yes. I think it's a great idea. It's all going to pot anyways.
Well, hang on. I want to try this UFOs into the Skinwalker Ranch. I can't wait to hear. Hang on, folks. Psychic medium and buddy of mine, Terry Huberman, is with me today. Terry, you've given me so many great readings and healings, and now you've got everything together in one package. Tell me about that.
I sure do. So this package has energy healings, readings, and coaching.
Coaching, that's the best. And people, they buy the package. You give them coaching once a week?
Yeah, so we meet online once a week, and in between, there's support as well.
And who would this be for?
This is really for folks who are in indecision, needing to get into their intuition because they're blocked or stuck. They need to move forward. And so we explore what the root causes of the problems are.
And helps them get out of their own way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific. And what can they expect from this?
Sure. So moving from anxiousness to confidence, accessing their freedom, joy, and security, and really being in alignment with themselves so they have that clear direction, so they know, aha, this is what I need to do next to reach my goals.
So now there's something that's free so people can talk to you and see if this is for them.
Yeah, absolutely. On my website, terryhuberman.com, there is a page where you can click, and it's the intuitive coaching package. And there is a button there that says schedule a free call. So you go ahead, schedule it. We'll get on a call and you can learn more about this program, and we'll see if this is a good fit for you or not.
See if there's chemistry.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's an odd date.
terryhuberman.com, TerrieHuberman. I highly recommend it, folks. Okay, so they finally have a TV show about the Skinwalker Ranch, which I hope these TV shows do it correct. But I just finished the book. What is the book is called? Is it Hunt for the
Skinwalker? There you go.
My God, it was so good. So give people that might not know the Skinwalker Ranch just a little view of what you know about it.
Sure. Well, the quick version of it is that a skinwalker is traditionally a Native American legend tradition. It's basically a shaman. It's a medicine man who has practiced the dark arts, the black magic, and so they become very powerful. And a lot of people believe that these skinwalkers have the ability to shapeshift into other animals, and they might appear as a bear, a wolf, different animals.
A black lion?
Yep, black lions. There you go. Anything, even hawks and stuff, that if you were to see one and someone you believe is a skinwalker, the tradition is you're supposed to kill them. Even when they're in their human form, because they've gone off the deep end, basically. So, at any rate, there is a place in eastern Utah, near Vernal, sort of. It's a Fort Duchesne area. That there's a specific ranch that back in, I want to say the 80s, was kind of the hot era for it. When there was a family the Sherman family was living there, and they had several head of cattle and this kind of remote little ranch next to the Ute Indian reservation. And they started experiencing very strange things. Everything from UFOs, that look like Winnebagos and refrigerators, to poltergeist activity on the ranch with objects being moved and taken from them, to cryptids. Now, these cryptids that were seen at very close range included wolves that were like huge, as tall as the car, as they're just walking all fours, that look like dire wolves that are supposedly extinct 10,000 years ago.
And they were, for some reason, I think in one of them, the guy said the wolf walked right up to him and it was like he was in a daze. He wasn't afraid, or there was something like it almost had a mind control.
Yeah, kind of like they explained Bigfoot does, right? But in one instance, the wolf right in front of them grabbed one of the calves, through the corral and tried to pull its head out through the bars. And they started shooting at this thing, and they're sure that they hit it, even with high-powered rifles. And, it looked like a chunk of meat would fly off of it, but the thing looked unfazed. And they had cattle mutilations. They had, these large creatures that came to visit them. And the family was like, we're done. We're losing our cattle, our livelihood. We're freaked out. So they sold the ranch to a billionaire named Robert Bigelow, and people know him because he owns the budget hotels, and also a space industry, Bigelow Aerospace. So during the 90s, this has been this kind of pet project where he formed a team called the NIDS team, the National Institute for Discovery Sciences. Got a bunch of people together and wanted this property so that he could study what was going on. So the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, comes about because George Knapp, who is the Vegas reporter who broke the Area 51 story, he gets wind of it. He becomes friends with, or was friends with, Bigelow, was allowed access. And you get these rumors and legends coming out from all the stuff that was going on at the ranch. There's an excellent documentary that Jeremy Corbell did that came out about it. And now finally, we fast forward, Bigelow sold the ranch. He claimed that the activity had diminished or pretty much ended out there. So he sold the ranch to an anonymous buyer, a group that on internet, everyone was trying to figure out who they were. And, it was their stuff going on because people are trespassing, right? They're always trying to climb over there and see what's going on. Well, last year, I was introduced through a mutual friend to who this anonymous person was. And within just the past, has it been, a week and a half, 2 weeks? Leading up to the History Channel show, he has decided to come forward and say who he is, which I think is a good move for him. So his name's Brandon Fugel, and he is a mogul in the commercial real estate business. And really nice guy. We share a lot of the same interests. I've spent hours upon hours with him in his high-rise office building discussing the things that he's seen out there at the ranch. And I can tell you, it's still going on.
So
there are some.
So was he interested in the paranormal when you went to buy this? Did he know it? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. He is. And I think some of that is going to come out in the TV show, which is interesting that I can't take credit for this, but the producers of that show contacted me early last year, and we were brainstorming ideas of hotspot locations. And I told them, I said, well, the coolest thing you guys are never going to get is Skinwalker Ranch. I was like, I don't even know who the owners are. No one can find them. They won't want to talk to anyone. And to their credit, they did the due diligence and found them.
Wouldn't it be funny if they just walked and knocked on the door? Hello.
Exactly.
You're the first. All right.
Well, nobody asked me. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So I am not involved in the production. People are confused. I wish I were, but I was not invited to the party after they'd found them. But they eventually turned a TV show into it. And by the time this airs, in fact, it's going to be, I think, the end of March is the first episode. I really hope it does well, because it's places like these hot spots that are absolutely incredible. We call them like a paranormal, like parapalooza. It's our little lab where you can see so many things going on of all types, and like, well, why here? Why is it so magical? Is this a portal? Is it a vortex? Is there something going on where we're seeing, like you said, the veil, maybe things are slipping in and out of it and anything's happening?
Well,
So that's why we need to know these things.
Yeah. And also it's no rhyme or reason. And it's a Bigfoot. It's something chasing the cattle you can't see. It's a UFO light. And I thought in the book, they said two of the guys, there's three of them out there. Two are looking at a light that they're thinking is a UFO, and one is got the night vision and sees that light as a tunnel instead of a light, and sees something come through it. Now, the skinwalker thing, too, wasn't that supposed to be... I know there's a lot of old Native American battles, or we push them off their land or whatever. I'm not sure if it's was it the shaman, or that's something they could call up, but they never do, because once you do, that's it. Like they opened that door and that was done. It wasn't closing.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea, is that whoever decides to get into that black art, the rest of the Navajos basically shun that person. They're not allowed to be part of their society anymore because they don't want to go to the dark.
Right.
But once they've done it, they've unleashed everything. One of the theories, and I don't know how much validity is to it. Well, why there? Because that's actually Ute reservation. They're a different tribe. I went to the University of Utah, so I'm a Ute in a sense. But one of the stories is the Ute Indians sided with the white man and fighting the Navajo, back in the day. And so the Navajo, supposedly the story goes, they put a curse on the Utes because of siding with the white man. And so now this curse has continued in that area in their reservation. And I just really don't think there's any real connection there, because the Skinwalker legend still exists within the Navajo reservations. It's very big in Arizona, New Mexico. There, you can walk into a gas station and mention it, and they will not talk to you, and they look at you and say, "Don't mention that here." It's taken very seriously.
So
among the older, the older crowd, the millennials might think it's kind of funny or whatnot. They don't respect their tradition as much.
Wow. And once you let that out, it's like bleach on a red shirt. You can't, it's all done. It's all over. Not taking that back. Wow. So when you were, let's say, Skinwalker Ranch adjacent, what did you see?
Yes. So I have a good buddy of mine. Some people may have seen a show I was on called Portals to Hell with Jack Osborne. And Jack invited me on an episode because we have a mutual friend I introduced them to, who has a bed and breakfast not too far from there. And he literally just bought the property next door to Skinwalker. So,
wow.
They're neighbors. They're neighbors now. And what people need to understand, though, is that Skinwalker, that phenomena, everything that's happening there is part of everything we call the Uinta Basin. The Uinta Mountains run east and west. It's one of the longest mountain ranges, east and west, in the U.S., if not the longest. And so there's a lot of weird stuff in that whole area. And it's not just Bigelow's ranch, that Brandon owns now, and it's not my friend's ranch. It's a lot of places there. So I have experienced, I saw a triangle only through a thermal camera at Ryan's place. And we've had poltergeist activity. You'll see in the TV show that aired on Travel, very, very, I don't want to chase business away from Ryan. Probably people will go there just to see it. But
yeah, I'm sure
his place has some stuff going on. there's some stuff, and I don't know if it's just related to the energy in the area, but there's a lot of everything, just like there is on the ranch.
Now, did he know that when he bought it?
Well, he bought that. He owns a bed and breakfast in Duchesne, and then you have Fort Duchesne, which is actually right more near the Skinwalker Ranch, which is his other big property. And he definitely knew it. He for years he was trying to buy the property around there because he's a big paranormal enthusiast. And I'm like, Ryan, like, when are you going to get this property? And it was a very touchy thing, right?
I love because you egging him on. Get it.
Well, yeah, because he couldn't really tell the people he was bidding it on why he wanted it so bad. And they started to question him, like, what are you going to do with it? And he's like, why do you need to know? Well, it's always been Bigelow or somebody else in that area who is, let's just say they cooperate. The neighbors cooperate very well with whoever owns Skinwalker Ranch because, you know, they have a lot of money, a lot of influence in the area, and they want to all be friends. And so they kept asking Ryan what he was going to do with it. And so anyways, to sum this up, I've talked to Brandon and I've talked to Ryan. They haven't actually met each other, even though they're neighbors. You know, Brandon doesn't live there, but they haven't met each other. And I'm going to arrange a meeting so that we can all be friends. And we all have the same goal of wanting to research all the properties there.
Wow.
You know, so I think it'll work out great because they're both great individuals and they really do have a good intention of sharing this with the public. That doesn't mean that we're going to like have parties and invite the public to actually get on the property.
Right.
But
well, in that book, one of the things they said was anytime anyone meditated or, you know, that's my stuff. That like when I do tarot, I have to sort of keep protection and stuff around my apartment because once you sort of create that energy, there is somewhat of an invitation if you're not careful. And they said in that book, when people would meditate or something, all of a sudden the activity would pick up.
Yes, and so if you're ever out there with me, and we're lucky enough to go at the same time, maybe we can go out there.
I'm in.
Be careful, yeah, because Ryan told me it's like there's something, an entity, an energy, something that can read your mind. Like when you go out there, it's almost like the energy you bring with it picks up on it. So if you're angry, you know, like you'll have like fearful and negative events. If you're positive and happy, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative experience, but it's something like it likes to play games. There's plenty of examples where there have been like illusions created, you know, like a UFO thing that, you know, has red and blue lights rotating, and it sounds like he said there was like it sounded like a PA system, like a police car coming after them when they were trespassing. It's like, oh no, you know, we've been caught, and then it just vanished. It just dissolved, as if it read their fears and was playing with them.
Wow.
You know, so there's a lot of weird stuff like that to where we got to be careful. It doesn't mean it's evil, but you got to be careful because we don't know what we're dealing with.
Well, then I might not be the person that you want to bring because cops are not my fear at all. Believe me. I've had some pretty, I've had a couple of terrifying experiences, and, you know, in private investigations, and, you know, that is an interesting quandary there. It's like I was talking to Karen Dahlman about the Ouija board and how you have to be careful who you bring in because it is like what is in your subconscious or what are you really afraid of? Are you thinking of that more than what you want? So that is interesting that it has some sort of a mirror effect.
Well, we don't know the rules base. If we knew the rules, you know, we could maybe, you know, go into it further, but we're kind of like playing a game where we don't know how to win or what the referee will say. I mean, because like you said, like I'm very careful with anything that involves my physical body. Like let's say touching a Ouija board, people doing a human pendulum or whatever. I'm not into that. Not because I think a Ouija board is inherently evil at all. It's a piece of cardboard. I think we just don't know the rules of actually, first of all, who you're talking to. And secondly, if you say, hey, go ahead and move my body, you have permission. You give them an inch, they might take a mile. And and if it's demonic, what do they want the most? What they don't have is a body. So that's why I just say be very, very careful with those things.
Yeah, that's when you're on a ghost hunt and hear somebody go, "You can touch me," and you're like, "No, no, that's then you're not riding home in my car if something goes wrong."
But I saw the movie Ghost, and Whoopi, like lets her body be taken over. Just jump inside of me. Do what you want.
No. Yeah, and you and I have strong spiritual or religious beliefs, and I mean, I've been around you, and I think when you have a strong belief like that, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, it can be I shouldn't say just strong religious beliefs, but some people seem to have an extra set of protection. And I always thought you had that. You're the right person.
You.
Yeah, you're so steady. And I know I sort of know how you, a little bit, we talked a little bit about how you grew up. And I think that, and this is a weird off, but I think sometimes we make fun of different religions. And I think when you have a belief in God, that's what is important for your protection. Yeah. So
absolutely. And having that relationship and knowing that, it's about knowing who you are and having a belief in where you come from, and so what's interesting too, because I am very religious though, people ask me, well, how do you make sense of this, with ghosts and UFOs, and does it affect your beliefs? And I said, not at all. Because I'm someone that I feel like I like to believe that I have enough of faith to know that it's okay not to know all the answers.
Right. That is what faith is.
Yeah. And to know that it all fits in somehow. We just don't know exactly, but somehow we're going to have answers at some point.
Wow. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Fascinating as always. And I can't wait to hear about your new show or whatever you're doing, or just thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me. This has been really fun. I haven't talked to you in quite a while. So this is a lot of fun.
And everybody can find you. You're on I was looking at your Twitter. It's what, Ben Hansen 006?
Just 00. Yep. Ben Hansen 00 is my Twitter. And benhansen.com is the website where, when I am allowed to talk about the projects I'm doing and all that stuff, it'll definitely be posted there. And when the world decides it's safe to venture out, an open society again, all my events that have been canceled will be back on there.
I know. Hopefully that's already happening as we talk. So check out benhansen.com, which, by the way, you must have been thrilled to be able to get that.
Oh, I know, huh? I hear people getting their names picked up and taken, and it's not a good thing when you have to bid on your own name.
Yeah, that's great. All right, well, thank you so much, Ben. Everybody, thanks for listening. Hopefully we'll be back soon with comedy dates, and if not, get a reading from me or check out my website, karenrontowski.com. Sign up for my newsletter. If you can give me 5 stars wherever you listen, that'd be great. Thanks to Mike Flynn at Uno Rising Media. That's it. We'll see you guys next week.